Hello there. This is me speaking. To a mobile phone, showing the mobile phone a watch. Well, I actually started this recording to record some thoughts that are occurring inside my mind, and I was very lazy to sit down and write. But even if I wrote, I didn't really know what to say, what to speak about. But at the moment, I'm in this state of being in which more seems clear to me. Though it doesn't make the picture more ambiguous that it's more clear, because the resolution and its utmost possibility is unattainable because it is infinite. So as you progress to further make your experience clearer or wider, you don't really get anywhere. But is there anywhere to go anyways? So I watched this film called The Purple Rose of Cairo, which was a very interesting film. And I was smoking joints for the last weeks, kind of often, which made my experience rather blurred. And also the experience I have with living with my girlfriend changes my significations in a way that my perceptions, or rather the experience of life, is altered away from the state that I'm currently in. And another reason for why do we speak about reasons? We can speak about what is. The most complex thing is not to be seeked for. It is the closest thing to you. It is not your body. It is not who you are. Well, at least not in an autobiographical sense. It is the experience, the human experience, the only thing. The only reach I have is the human experience. But that doesn't really need to limit my interaction with it all. It doesn't, no. The things I'm trying to speak about require an activation, I presume. And I also expected the automatic mode of transmitting your ideas to another medium to happen as it occurs on text. Even though I speak like text, it doesn't flow in the same way. What I experience is utmost clarity in terms of how I perceive, as if the organs that I've used before are not these. These are not what they were. But I've experienced this before, of course. And it is not just the five senses that we usually speak of. We don't even have to take them separately. But if you were to take them separately, I could say that all of them are much more clearer. And if I use a scientific or 21st century explanation, I would say that I am in access to more data of the environment. But it's not about that. It's more about my existence is in a higher dimensionality than it was. It is resolute, and not even in a self-conscious way. Because when you are self-conscious, it might make it more resolute or might not. The depth, the dimensionality, light, sound, the feeling of my body, the feeling of my existence, and also the knowledge of how do we put it to words? The knowledge that nothing is. Nothing is founded on anything. It is just a huge hall of mirrors. But where is the ground? Well, I actually do think that there is no ground, but still we have this peculiar feature as humans that we seek for the ground. But that also tells us something. Why do we seek for the ground, even if some of us think that there is none? And I, one of those who think that way, still do seek for that. No clue. The richest, the most complex thing worth of investigation, in a scientific manner or not, is just there. It is just as you're listening to this. I mean, I don't know if anyone's gonna listen to this though. Just stop for a moment and appreciate the fact of your existence. The most complex thing that we, or at least as far as I know, have come across. This is what happens when you put a sober mind, make it read some papers about consciousness and a 21st century, rather Jungian inquiry on consciousness and psychedelics, and then make that thing listen or watch, rather see, The Purple Rose of Cairo. Such a strange film, looks very regular, but it is not. Far, far away from that. This is the state I find myself in. But it is rather about the currents that you choose to get into, that you form your experience. So even if I speak about these halls of mirrors and grounds, there is still an I that may not be in control of what's going on in the external world, or may be in control of it. But that is not a prerequisite to be in control of which currents you are flowing with, which spaces are you harmonious to. And as we are able to change from goal to goal, decide on something, design something, and try to realize it, we can, I believe, travel from a space to another space that our consciousness can harmonize into. And you can do it on will, and it will change everything that is on the top of it. So your personality, your ambitions, if you have them, the way you perceive, the way you think, the way you exist, the way you relate to others. All of that is actually above the realms that I'm speaking of, the realms that we can change. And as you shift through those realms and harmonize to some things or other, you actually change all of it on the top. All. But that is just a layer. And I still do believe that we have control over everything in a sense. And this is parallel with we being not in control of anything. But I do feel that as humans, I have control over I have control over the usual things, whether I want to drink coffee or not. Or do I? Because you can also explain those things via completely external factors. I believe if we have the enough data, we will be explained every action from completely external things. But this doesn't contradict with the fact that I can choose. I think the volitional realm of introspection and the external realm of introspection or investigation don't have to contradict, even if they can fully explain the phenomena. They can be layers on top of each other. And this thing that we're in is so complex that it can be in contradiction and still be, because it is higher dimensional than the contradictions that it entails, or the things that are entailed are lower in dimensionality. So it can actually be in contradiction because it has more space than the smaller things that with themselves seem contradictory. They are not. And in this sense, I am creating it. Well, to my own knowledge, I am creating the world that I perceive to. Or additionally, as I was speaking about them, the realms of attunement, the realms that I can harmonize into, I can choose that. But then you can still continue the introspection and ask the question, on what do you choose? What is the thing that made you choose? Is it just your existence? Is it just your will? What is your will affected by? And I believe that we will get the same dynamic that we get once we ask the same question to getting a coffee. Like, some of it might be affected by the fact that I got coffee last day. And the fact that I chose to be in a single realm was affected by the fact that I was in a similar realm 2 days ago and I wanted that. So even if we go in those realms to deeper and more superficial ones, we can see the same dynamics repeated with maybe different constraints, but still repeated. You can see the same pattern. So even if we are able to control it all, so if we could even go beyond the realms that I'm speaking about and change things that are much more fundamental than that, and I believe there is the possibility of that, I can sense it, we still wouldn't be more powerful. Because the same thing also applies here. You can explain it via completely external factors that makes you look like an automaton, and it would be completely consistent in itself, and even if not now, would be appropriate with the data and empirically approved. Whereas on the other hand, you could explain the phenomena as a phenomena of will. But independent of the will question, well, wait, I'm gonna close that tab first. Well, I actually enjoy speaking about these things like this. Maybe instead of writing texts, I will do this. Fuck, I forgot what I was saying. Will. Such a strange thing, this existence. I'm putting these things on camera like this, but you are not going to see them as I do see them now. But I could perhaps show around a bit. These were what I was looking at as I was speaking here. These are some paintings that I drew when I was in St. Petersburg. Right. See. And I think the house also has a very important part in putting me into this realm, or make it much more easier to get into a realm of this kind because of the resolution it has. Because I do think that there are differences of resolution in the objects of different times. So these objects that you see here are more resolute, and the, well, quote-unquote natural objects are much more in resolution. That I sometimes fail to appreciate that, because it is much less accessible when it's not a human thing. But when it is a human thing, it's much more accessible, and you can much more easily understand those differences of resolution. And in things like this, texture is a part of this, but I'm not just talking about texture as I speak about resolution. But things that are coming from, well, times of past are mostly, as far as I've seen, higher in resolution. In part because of the natural decay that happens in them, so they tend to come more like this from something like new to something like this, which has its own natural decay contours and textures. But also, apart from that, the craftsmanship that you see with things are of a different technology and of a different mindset. And that makes it more appreciable for me because of the fact that it gives me access. It works as a lock. It works as a key, whereas I'm the lock, to different mentalities of different ages. And in some parts of the consciousnesses of those different ages, some realms are much more easily accessible. But also our mentality of our times have other things that make it more accessible. Makes it more accessible to other things. But as I walk, I feel that I am being, distracted. But I was speaking about this house being a constituent part of the experience that I am having at the moment, because the resolution is much higher. and it tends to get the resolution of my mind higher, and it works as a lock, whereas I'm the key, as I said before. So the key was prepared with the content it surrounded itself with, but on a wider array of things, it was surrounded by this more resolute area, and thus it led to this state. And I do actually believe that these states are replicable in other human beings. But these things are so out of the ordinary life that we inhabit ourselves in, and the time of our life, the functionalist understanding of things, which makes richer experiences much harder to get to, keeps me from interacting with people or communicating with people, things of this kind. But I do believe that this is a shareable thing. This is not the ability to fine-tune different realms and travel in between realms as you travel in between a coffee shop and your school, or as you change your mentality from one person to another person. You can change these, you can harmonize these different realms, which also unlocks different personalities and different everythings. And I would like to experiment with this with other people. But I don't know how can I do that. How can I start doing that? Well, there is one with whom I've experienced this. Well, there are multiple experiences of this with different people, but the deepest is with my girlfriend, as I see how we shift through different mentalities together and create different compositions with different proportions, with different ingredients of another being. Sometimes a coherent being, sometimes an uncoherent being. Was it incoherent? Yeah, an incoherent being. Sometimes things are put in together, sometimes they're not. But yeah, I guess I'll finish this off by trying to recapitulate what I was saying. And I don't even remember that, but I do sense that I just put it like this in this speech. There are these top things and there are these bottom things. I don't mean to use it as profound, profane. It kind of looks like that, but it's not that. It's the cheaper experiences and the more dimensional experiences, not like that as well. It's more about things of this world. For instance, you getting a coffee and speaking to the person saying, I want this coffee, and then giving the money. And your decisions at that moment are a layer. There are other layers that I didn't conceptualize yet, so they don't form a consistent whole, but it's just wording, and I can form a consistent whole later. Even below your wishes, because I think you are not in control of your actions, but so there are the layer of actions, the layer of will beneath the actions, but beneath the layer of will is the layer which, from bottom up, constructs the layer of will, and in addition to other things, creates what you wish, which then you might act upon or not. But what I'm saying is the layer below will is open to human manipulation, which is what I describe as the realms that you can attune yourself to or harmonize to, and that you can change them with will. And even if you don't really have the volition to change that, you can watch it change. It is as if you're just traveling inside consciousness as you experience daily life. But it doesn't make daily life less real or more real, because this sort of an explanation of daily life is not contradictory to the lay people evaluation of it. It is the same thing, and even if these different explanations seem to map out different areas, or even seem to contradict, I think our universe is so complex that it can be explained in contradictory ways and still be consistently explained, and we don't have to choose whether one is the real and the other is unreal, but rather we can even do these things as we can travel from one explanation to the other, and they're complementing mental states. And when you are able to change the mental state, you can actually get to how it is explained in this sense and understand it. So there is no reaching to truth. And how I propose that we can change these mental states is by changing the realm beneath them. I have no fucking clue how this thing works, because I'm only doing this thing, not really as a practice, but as a thing, this changing of realms thing, for the last 6 months or so. But more than manipulating them myself, I'm experiencing how they change and noting in my mind. And I realized an inconsistency 2 minutes ago that I made. So I put will, I put realm, and then I put that you can change the realms by volition, which puts the will underneath. There's an inconsistency there, but I don't see it as an inconsistency in the way I explain things. It's rather an inconsistency of words, because I'm shooting this at a... Oh, there is no time. It's not working. But still, I hope that I could get my point across, because I have no idea if I make any sense whatsoever. But still, it is an outburst of things. Hope you have a wonderful, whatever time or space you're doing.